All right, Kevin, thanks for being here. We're here at Camp Pendleton, Marine Corps Base. Marines, sailors, the families are filing in. They're about to watch Horizon. Why was it important for you to do it here at Camp Pendleton?
Well, it feels important to me. Our military is part of the fabric of our country, if not the tip of the spear, you know, as I want to show the film, as I want to make people aware of it, the idea of coming to a military base just seems real logical to me.
Your story, Horizon, it's about America. Here we are, as you point out, the tip of the spear for America. It just fit, bringing those two things together?
Well, I think that America was a promise. You know, it was really, if you made it across that Atlantic Ocean, there was this story that there was this country that just went on and on. It was the Garden of Eden, if you will, and if you could get there, and if you were strong enough, if you were resourceful enough, you could make it yours. They failed to mention that people had been here for 15,000 years, and no one really thought about that. But that promise kept people coming for the last 400, 500 years, and there's been this march from sea to shining sea, and so you know, that's the story. In this instance, it covers a 12-year span, and we took over the West. I don't want to say settled. We took it over, but we did it by inches. It was contested. It was fought for by the people who did live here.
This seems to be your great American novel. I mean, it's a project you've been working on, and I've read since 1988. You've kept coming back to it again and again. What was it about this story? There's been a lot of stories. You've had a lot of stories in your career that come back to the West. What was it that was necessary to be said?
Every time I would read these scenes, they had a ring of authenticity to me. That yes, it must have been like that in some form. It's not a true story, but it happened a million times. Every one of the stories that you see being told, and I have to make up my mind. Where am I going to go with an audience? Is it going to be a political thriller? Am I going to do straight out history? Am I going to make a romantic comedy, a sports movie? And I love going back because I feel like it's just filled with drama. I feel like there's an excitement to seeing these places that really still exist in our country.
These places on the edge of the frontier?
Well, where I chose to film, I mean, it's awe-inspiring to see what this land was. And before we came, people were flourishing here in their own way. And to deal with that drama and deal with it in an authentic way, dealing with real behavior, they weren't fighting for a piece of land as much as they were fighting for their right to live and hold on to their religion, hold on to, you know, not be hunted like animals.
There's a speech in Horizon where a military captain talks about the inevitability of the wagons pushing west. You know, I read a lot about the frontier. I love exploration. A lot of the guys that did exploration were heroic figures. In Horizon, and a lot of the people in real life that pushed the frontier in America, normal, everyday people.
Absolutely.
Looking for something in life.
Well, they were, and so you never forget. And I'm in awe of the resourcefulness it took for people to open it up, to go, this kind of thing in America where we can look at something, we can bend a river to our will. There's something resourceful, there's something resilient about how Americans think what they can do. So to make just a living, to keep their kids, to keep their children clean, to protect themselves, it's really, it's not a land in Disneyland. It was real, and so the resourcefulness, the noble, that people acted in many ways heroically, and there was others that, like at any time in life, they take advantage of what seemed to be no law.
Do you think that today in America we still have that ability to bend the river, to do heroic things?
I do. I think the opportunity is better than ever to kind of take our future and to look at where we're at as a country honestly and try to understand that we can be proud of what we've accomplished, but understand that in anything we can really do a lot better.
Well, this was a little bit your frontier, it seems like. It's not just a project you keep coming back to for decades. I understand, I mean, a lot of not just sweat equity, but financing yourself that you put into this project. Again, this project itself, so it's clearly so important to you.
Yeah, I have to make up my mind what I'm going to be about. If I'm going to be a storyteller, I need to find the great original story that I mean, I still like to go to the theater. People, they sit down and they want something. We're here, and there's no curtain here, but when there used to be, when it opened, you always felt that something magical could happen. And so to travel back and to create characters that you see yourself in, not just a black hat or a white hat, but where there's real dilemma, where what do you do? Which way do you go? Who do you trust? Who can't you? It was difficult out there. It wasn't simple. We think of the West as being simple. It was terribly difficult. Living in a city is easy.
But what did you sacrifice for this project? I mean, I know you've contributed financially. I know I read you've mortgaged a home. Like, what have you sacrificed for this project, Horizon?
Well, I don't know that I've certainly put a lot of money into this. I've certainly foregone my salary. But I don't know that I've sacrificed anything. What I've done is kind of kept a promise with myself to tell stories and to tell them in an original way. And just because something feels difficult, it doesn't mean it shouldn't be attempted. It doesn't mean it shouldn't be done. And I'm really proud of what Horizon is and what a family experience will be, even though it's listed as an R. I do think it's the kind of movie that when the parents look at it go, you know what, I think I want our son to see this. I think I want our daughter to see this, because it is what our great grandparents went through.
You know, I guess I asked you that question in terms of sacrifice, which may or may not apply, because at least correlation, I look at what's gone on in your life over the terms of this project coming to life.
Right.
You, as we pointed out, you put money into this project. You got divorced a year ago. You put out an Instagram post last week that you'd be moving on from Yellowstone. Are any of these things correlated with this, how much you've dedicated to Horizon?
I don't think so at all. I mean, I just like to work more than once a year. I've done that before in my life. There's no one situation like that, and I wasn't able to do that for a while. My personal life is, I've gone through what a lot of people have gone through. I didn't want that to happen. It's not how I would draw it, but it did. Here I am. I'm a single parent, but Horizon has nothing to do with that.
Well, I guess I keep coming back to that, just how much this project meant to you.
Well, it's not more important than any other movie. It's not more important than The Field of Dreams or than Dances with Wolves. But what's important is I've kind of kept faith with how I want to tell stories, and sometimes they're about my country, and I want to look at it in an authentic way, in an entertaining way, where you see yourself, but you're drawn into it and you understand the sacrifice, how hard it was for people before us. We forget, we're on a military base. We celebrate Memorial Day and we look back, but can we actually place ourselves in the danger that we sent our strongest, our youngest, our bravest?
It's interesting you say you want to tell stories about my country. I mean, I think anyone, even from a distance, can casually observe your career and see there's something quintessentially American about the choices that you make.
Yeah.
I mean, baseball, the Old West, right, and political thrillers.
I'm going to make a picture about apple pie. Watch.
2 hours?
Yeah, but it's... Yeah, well, sometimes that's what it takes.
Or is that one going to be 6 hours as well?
That's what it takes sometimes. Everybody, when you're little, they give you a piece of paper to draw, right? And you draw and I draw and we do something, we turn it in, and sometimes mine looks like 4 pictures. It's just the way I do it, and I can't help that. And just because others do something a certain way, I admire that. I've made the single movie before. I make romantic comedies. I make these things for people, and when they visit, I try to make it, visit it. I want them, when they see it, walk away and feel that was really relevant to myself. When I didn't realize I didn't realize I was going to enjoy Horizon so much. These women are dominant in the story.
I asked you about whether or not we can still bend rivers and do big things. What Horizon represented to me is a thematic element of not just America, but particularly the West in America. And that's the edge, that's frontier, that's risk tolerance. And it's, I think, a real part of our DNA. But I do wonder, do we still have that risk tolerance? Do we still have that frontier in America?
Well, you know, we've gone from sea to shining sea, if you will. We've gone to both coasts, and now what is in between? You know, some people talk about space as the frontier. Not me. I wouldn't go. I like it too much here. Some people say, would you go? There's hands that shoot up that would go in a second. Not me. I love this world and the opportunities for me to still see it myself in between the raindrops of how I conduct my life. And so, is there a frontier? I think I mean, I don't really, it's not about just land, because then we'd be taking some other land that's somehow spoken for. But in our minds, I mean, can we go farther in our minds? Can we go farther in our level of empathy for other cultures, for a higher understanding of how this country can operate at a higher level? People are falling through the cracks. How do we take care of that? There's always this idea, well, we have to be about that.
And you see that as the next frontier?
Well, I think if our country looked at itself, I think that there is a frontier in us keeping faith with the promise that that if you play fair, you're going to be treated fair.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's also frontiers representing what you've done here, and that's laying it on the line entrepreneurially for something that you believe in. You're right. Although you say, I mean, you're right. I don't know how much more land there is to explore and discover, but as you point out in Horizon, it's not as though this was truly undiscovered. There was someone else here.
Right. I think it wouldn't hurt at all. This country continued to just look at itself, be honest with things, and understand what's important. And it's not someone's career. It's not someone's tenure. It's not anything. Public service really is about us. I mean, are we getting the best attention? Are we like going after problems in a very logical way? Are we looking at things that have been broken for so long? You know, I think probably every election I'm older than you are. Every election, somebody's going to take care of the veterans, and it doesn't seem to happen. And every year it's going to be, and every 4 years it's going to be something about this, and it doesn't seem to happen. And so I think Americans are frustrated with that. I know I am, because it feels like, boy, we can do a lot of things. It seems like we could fix that. And I think there's 20 things like that. It looks like we could fix that. You know, can we, you know, people don't want to pay a lot of taxes, but I don't know anybody that if they thought it was going to make a difference that wouldn't pay more. So we're thinking, well, where is our money going? Why can't that be tracked? What is so difficult about that?
I think the answer to that is a question, and that is, what type of leadership?
That's right. Right, and leadership is, we're in desperate need of that. We're not in need of extension of careers. Leadership, you know, the definition of a great leader probably won't be elected because he's done the right things to make enough people uncomfortable. But but we're on course for something. We have to get out in front of this, and I'm like anybody, just staring at the TV sometimes and wondering.
Well, Kevin, you're a student of history. You've made quintessential movies and told stories about history. So as you kind of survey the landscape, who to you is emblematic of a great leader?
Well, a lot of times you're judged so much later on. I mean, you think about Lincoln for some reason. If I could have dinner with a few people, he might be one of them, and it would be to say, no, you had a great presidency. I'm thinking that he, felt. We don't know what that last moment was, but the night before, he was probably feeling like he had a failed presidency. There was everybody attacking him. There was everybody that was after him. And years later, we think of him as one of our greatest presidents. And that kind of leader who just feels, I yearn for that kind of big thinking.
You told a story with Fox in the past couple of years on Fox Nation, Yellowstone 150. I know you signed a new deal with Fox Nation to do some more stories. What kind of stories will you be telling with Fox Nation?
Well, I think they want to continue with the national park themes, where we get kind of behind the curtain about what really went down, and you realize that, in that first one, you realize a single individual kind of just went against the grain, was out there to do one thing, and kind of looked at what he was doing, had a sea change, and said, instead of us figuring out how to put a railroad through here, why don't we figure out how to save this? And it was such a novel idea, and everybody looked at him, and nobody even knew what he was talking about. But in some way, it was a young man whose DNA was formed when he was very young, and he walked to a college and said, if you let me in, I don't have any money, I'm going to make a difference in this world. And he did, and 25, 30 years later, he was the reason why we had our first national park. And he went to Congress, and even all the materials that he was going to take to Congress to try to win the day had been destroyed, the greatest majority of them, in the Great Chicago Fire. And yet he had some paintings and some photographs, and it carried the day. I think sometimes great issues hit the floor of Congress, and people already know how they're going to vote. It doesn't matter what somebody's going to say. I see people speaking sometimes behind the lectern, and people are wandering around. There must have been a time when great oratory would make a difference. Meaning, I felt one day coming into this chamber, and after listening to that, I feel a different way. That we had the ability to alter our thinking.
You think we've lost the ability to persuade?
That the poetry of an argument can carry the day.
I like that idea as well. I like the idea of being able to sit down with someone you might have disagreement, and you either do one of two things, as one of my friends used to say when you have a debate. You either win or you learn something.
Or you come back to it. Say, because I don't want to change if I really feel something, because someone hasn't been able to convince me. But I don't want to shut off the argument, because 2 weeks later somebody comes back and suddenly says something in a way that I had never thought about. That can change me.
Right.
It doesn't make me weak.
Right. I did a road trip a few years ago, hit as many national parks as I possibly could. Zion, Bryce, Yellowstone. So what's your favorite one besides Yellowstone?
Well, Yosemite never fails to inspire. Glacier is just bigger than big. I don't know. I'm in love with the outdoors. I just can't get enough of it.
Well, I can't wait to see what you do on Fox Nation.
Great.
Have fun today with Horizon.
Thank you.
And this audience. Thank you, Kevin.